Hi, I'm Dean, 38, and last night I called the cops on my own brother. After his kids, my nieces and nephew, knocked on my door barefoot at 2 a.m. because he locked them out again. But this time, I didn't just let them crash on the couch and pretend it was fine. I taught him a lesson he'll never forget. There's a specific sound a kid makes when they're not crying yet, just holding it together by a thread, and it's worse than sobbing. That sound was what yanked me awake at 3:17 a.m. I sat bolt upright, heart hammering. At first, I thought it was a dream. Then I heard it again. Uncle Dean? Please? I practically fell out of bed. Rushed to the front door of my apartment, tripping over laundry and the edge of the coffee table. Peeped through the hole. And there they were. Nathan, Sophia, and little Ollie. Standing in socks. In November. I threw the door open so fast it slammed against the wall. Nathan? What the hell, where are your parents? He looked up at me, eyes huge and ringed with purple, his pajama shirt soaked in sweat despite the cold. They locked us out. He whispered. Sophia clutched Ollie's hand like it was a lifeline. She wasn't even wearing a jacket. None of them were. Just pajamas and those ratty socks with characters on the toes, now shredded from walking 4 damn miles in 30 degrees Fahrenheit weather. Come inside, Jesus, your feet. I ushered them in, cranked the heat, dumped every blanket I owned on the couch. Ollie collapsed instantly, not even crying. Just blank. Sophia's teeth chattered like a cartoon. Nathan's lips were tinged blue. When did this happen? I asked while kneeling to check their feet. The socks had frozen to their skin. One of Sophia's toes was angry red. Ollie's looked pale and waxy. Rage bloomed in my throat. We knocked for like 20 minutes, Nathan said. Then we just walked. He said it like it was normal. Like this wasn't the first time. I wrapped their feet, gave them cocoa, and tried not to scream into a pillow. I'm a high school teacher. I've taken mandatory reporter training. But none of that prepares you for when it's your own family. Has this happened before? Nathan didn't meet my eyes. Not like this. Which told me everything. I tried calling my brother Eric and his wife, Mara. Voicemail. Text undelivered. I tried their house line. Nothing. It was almost 4:30 a.m. And 3 kids were in my apartment with potential frostbite, while their parents were, what? Out partying again? Sleeping? I didn't know. I didn't care. I looked at Nathan. He was 13, and his shoulders were already shaped like a man's from carrying burdens no kid should. Did your dad ever tell you what to do if you needed help? He hesitated. He said, if we told anyone, they'd take us away. That foster care splits up families. Sophia was curled up under my hoodie by then. Ollie was out cold on the recliner. Nathan? He was watching me with this look, like he was daring me to make the call. So I did. I called CPS at 4:48 a.m. This is Dean Merrick, I said, my voice steady for once. And I need to report 3 children in immediate danger. The CPS intake officer on the other end had the calm, clipped tone of someone who'd heard everything twice. Maybe 3 times. But I could hear a shift in her voice when I said the kids had frostbite. When I described how Ollie hadn't spoken a word since arriving, how Sophia was shaking so hard she spilled her cocoa, and how Nathan, 13-year-old Nathan, had cooked dinner most nights for his siblings for the past 2 years. Can you keep them safe until an investigator arrives? Yes, I said without hesitation. They're not going anywhere. The woman told me someone would be there within the hour. Don't contact the parents, she said. And keep the children calm. Food, warmth, reassurance. You've done the right thing. It felt like a small absolution. I hung up and stood in my kitchen, the overhead light buzzing like it was part of my pulse. I looked out at the living room at Nathan sitting bolt upright, eyes tracking every move I made. Sophia asleep under 3 blankets, Ollie curled up like a cat in the corner chair. I hadn't changed out of my t-shirt and sweats. I hadn't blinked in half an hour. But I walked over to Nathan, knelt so we were eye level, and said, You're not going back tonight. Maybe not for a while. You're safe here. His chin trembled. He nodded once. At 5:42 a.m., the doorbell rang. Patricia Walsh didn't look like a superhero, but she might as well have been. Gray hair in a tight braid, windbreaker, clipboard, badge. She looked around the room once, then straight at me. Dean? I'm Patricia with Child Protective Services. I stepped back, let her in, and the room changed. Patricia didn't waste a second. She crouched by Ollie, spoke gently, checked his toes, took photos with a small black camera. We're going to get this checked, buddy. You're so brave. Nathan flinched when she asked to see his arms. Just to make sure, she said softly. No one's in trouble but the adults. She took each kid aside for a private talk. I could hear bits Sophia naming her favorite teacher, Nathan giving exact details of the night. When she finally looked at me, her face was serious. I'm placing them in emergency protective custody, she said. They can't go home today. I nodded. They can stay here. We'll need to do a home study, background check, but for now, yes. Under temporary placement, with supervision. Supervision? A knock at the door. A uniformed officer. Just protocol, Patricia said. He'll be in the hall until we sort things out. It felt surreal, my one-bedroom apartment now the safest place 3 kids had been in months. But they were warm. Federal. Not scared anymore. At 6:20 a.m., my phone buzzed. Eric. I almost didn't answer. But I did. Because part of me needed to hear it. To know just how deep the denial would go. What the hell did you do? He barked. No, hello. No. Are my kids okay? I stepped into the kitchen, closed the door behind me. They walked 4 miles, Eric. In freezing temperatures. In pajamas. Don't exaggerate. He snapped. They probably just went for a walk. At 3 a.m. In socks? They had a key. They must have. Dean, come on. This is family. You don't call CPS on your own brother. No, I said quietly. I called CPS on a man who left his kids outside overnight. You just happen to be my brother. He went silent. Then, you're going to regret this. No, I said, and I meant it. You are. By the time Patricia finished her formal report and the officer took up position in the hallway, the kids had fallen into a kind of fragile calm. Ollie snored quietly, cocooned in fleece. Sophia clung to a stuffed bear I dug out from my ex's old donation pile. Nathan sat on the edge of the couch like he couldn't let himself fully relax, like he expected the whole thing to vanish at any moment. Patricia pulled me aside. I need to visit the home. Your brothers. Will anyone be there? If they are, they're probably hungover. She didn't flinch. Just made a note and left. 10 minutes later, the first real text buzzed through on my phone, not from Eric this time. From Mara. You're a monster. You've always been jealous. They'll hate you when they're older. I didn't respond. But my jaw clenched so tight I gave myself a headache. At 8:13 a.m., Patricia called from the house. You need to hear this. She'd walked into a nightmare, a fridge with 2 half-empty condiment bottles and expired yogurt. Piles of laundry that smelled like mildew. Dishes crusted with food. 1 bathroom with a broken toilet. She'd found Nathan's stash. A box of cereal, crackers, and peanut butter jars hidden in the closet. He said it was for emergencies. They've been living in emergencies. I muttered. She sighed. We'll finish up the report today. I'll need you to come to family court Monday to request temporary guardianship. In the meantime, CPS will be listing you as emergency foster placement. I nodded, barely processing. Then the doorbell rang again. This time it wasn't Patricia or a cop. It was my parents. Both in coats, my mom still in her church heels. My dad looked like he hadn't slept. Dean. My mom started. What did you do? I stared at them, dumbfounded. They were locked out. In the cold. 4 miles. Do you know what frostbite looks like on a 6-year-old? But CPS? My dad said. Your brother says this was all a misunderstanding. Of course he does. We raised you better than to throw family under the bus. No, I said, voice low and shaking. You raised me to keep the peace at all costs. Even when it was killing me. Even when it's killing them. From the hallway, Nathan appeared. He stood there, wrapped in my old hoodie, face pale but eyes steady. Grandma? He said, his voice small. Why didn't you ever come when we asked? My mom froze. My dad blinked. Nathan wasn't accusing. He was asking. And their silence said everything. They left 5 minutes later. No yelling. No hugs. Just the hollow sound of retreat. Inside, I knelt by Nathan. I'm sorry you had to see that. He shook his head. It's okay. They always chose Uncle Eric. We knew. A 13-year-old shouldn't know that. I sent a text to Patricia, confirming emergency placement. Whatever it takes. I'm in. And that night, as I tucked Sophia and Ollie into a makeshift bed in my room, and Nathan curled up on the couch finally asleep without twitching every 5 minutes, I realized I wasn't just their uncle anymore. I was it. Their person. Their safe place. Their line in the sand. Monday came with gray skies and court paperwork, the kind that makes you feel like you've somehow failed before you even begin. I took the day off from teaching, put on the only suit I owned that didn't feel like it belonged to a wedding, and walked 3 kids into a courthouse like I was auditioning for fatherhood with 48 hours' notice. Nathan wore borrowed sneakers mine and walked beside me like a bodyguard. Sophia clutched my hand the whole way, whispering questions like, "Will they make us go back?" and, "Can I keep my bear?" Ollie just hummed softly, some made-up melody with no rhythm, a nervous soundtrack he probably didn't even realize he was making. The court clerk didn't blink when I handed her the emergency placement forms. Just nodded, stamped a few things, and said, "You'll be seen by Judge Ramirez in 20 minutes. 20 minutes to determine the next who knows how long of 3 children's lives." Patricia met us in the waiting room. She brought lollipops, legal pads, and the kind of exhaustion that lives in your bones. "Heard from their parents?" she asked. "They've texted. Accused me of kidnapping. Said they'd sue me into oblivion?" She raised an eyebrow. "Let them try. They'll be too busy fighting felony neglect charges." That shut me up. In the courtroom, it all felt surreal. Like I was starring in someone else's legal drama. Patricia laid out the evidence. The frostbite. The home visit photos. The food stash. The teacher statements. The officer who'd stood watch at my door gave his report too calm and clinical. When it was my turn to speak, I didn't go full tearjerker. I didn't need to. I just said, "I'm not doing this because I want to be a hero. I'm doing this because I've seen what happens when no one steps in. And I won't let that happen on my watch." The judge nodded. Just once. Then she looked at Nathan. "Young man, is this where you want to be?" Nathan straightened his spine like he was testifying before Congress. "Yes, ma'am. Uncle Dean is the only adult who listens." Oof. It hit the judge the same way it hit me. Bang of the gavel. Temporary guardianship granted. 60 days with a review. Background checks pending. We walked out of that courtroom like we just escaped a war zone. Sophia asked if we could get pancakes. Ollie perked up at pancakes. Nathan looked like he aged 5 years in a single morning. So we got pancakes. Extra whipped cream. No rules. I let Sophia pour the syrup herself. Ollie giggled so hard milk came out his nose. Nathan finally exhaled. Back at the apartment, while the kids sprawled out for an afternoon movie, I stood in the kitchen and let myself feel it. All of it. The fear. The weight. The quiet, terrifying realization that this wasn't going to be over in a week or 2. That I wasn't just babysitting anymore. That these weren't sleepovers. This was fatherhood by ambush. My phone buzzed again. Another message from Eric. "You think you've won? This is just starting. You're not taking my kids." I looked over at the couch at the girl who hadn't stopped clutching a bear since she arrived. At the boy who still flinched at sudden sounds. At Nathan, fast asleep with his arms wrapped around the couch pillow like it was the last safe thing in the world. And I texted back one word. Good. By the end of the week, my tiny one-bedroom apartment looked like a refugee camp sponsored by IKEA and desperation. There were makeshift beds in every corner. The couch had stopped being a couch. My kitchen table became a homework station, a snack bar, and an impromptu therapy booth depending on the time of day. My coffee intake had tripled. My savings account had halved. And still I wouldn't have traded any of it. But that didn't mean I wasn't drowning. The second court granted me temporary custody. The ripple effect hit like a freight train. School registrations. Pediatrician appointments. Counseling referrals. Home study interviews. CPS check-ins. Background checks. Parenting classes. Emergency funds. You ever try explaining a child's trauma history to a public school secretary before 9 a.m.? I have. It's not great. Nathan went back to school the following Monday, and I walked him in like I was sending him into war. He didn't want me to too old for that, he said, but I could tell he was scared. Not of school. Of people asking questions he didn't want to answer. Sophia started crying during her first math class. Not because of the math. Because someone raised their voice when calling attendance. Ollie refused to go at all. He'd crawl under the coffee table every time I mentioned school, and wouldn't come out unless I bribed him with gummy worms and YouTube videos of rocket launches. So, I homeschooled him with coloring books and whatever I could Google between lesson planning for my real job. That job? Hanging by a thread. My principal was understanding, bless her, but I could see the strain in every "take the time you need" conversation. I was missing staff meetings, grading on my lunch breaks, and teaching via recorded Zoom lessons I filmed at 2 a.m., with a sleeping child in the next room. Meanwhile, Eric and Mara kept sending legal threats. Letters. Emails. Nasty little packages of twisted reality. They swore up and down that they were going to fight for custody once the lies were exposed. But they never filed anything. Never met with their court-appointed counselor. Never made it to a single supervised visitation. Because, deep down, they knew they'd already lost the only people who mattered. And here's the worst part, the kids were starting to relax. That sounds like a good thing, but it crushed me. Because it meant this chaos was better than where they'd come from. Ollie finally called me, Dad, one morning by accident. I nearly dropped my coffee mug. Sophia made a drawing at school titled My Family, and it had me in the middle, holding her hand. Nathan, stoic, guarded Nathan asked if we could maybe look at bunk beds for when they got to stay longer. I had to excuse myself to the balcony and let out a full-body cry. Because I wasn't supposed to be doing this. I wasn't trained. I wasn't prepared. I didn't even own a dining room table that seated 4. But I was there. I was there. And that, according to every therapist, teacher, and social worker I talked to, was more than their parents had ever been. It took 3 weeks for Eric to finally make a real move, and when he did, he didn't show up with a lawyer. He showed up at my school. I was in the middle of supervising a detention 2 freshmen caught selling candy bars without permission when my phone buzzed with a text from the front desk. There's a man here asking for you. Says he's your brother. Won't leave. My blood ran cold. I walked down the hall, heart pounding, knowing exactly the kind of show he'd be putting on. The victim dad. The concerned father. The righteously wronged. And there he was. Eric, in a polo shirt he probably hadn't washed, arms crossed, smirking like he just walked into court with Exhibit A. Wow, he said, looking me up and down. Mr. Role Model. Teaching kids while stealing mine. I didn't bite. Get out of here, Eric. I'm at work. Yeah, so am I, working on getting my children back. You think I'm just gonna let you keep them like some rescue dog you picked up off the highway? I stepped in close. Calm. Controlled. My voice like glass. They're not dogs. And they're not yours, not in any way that counts. He leaned in, breath sour with coffee and desperation. You think this ends with your little custody party? I've got rights. I've got family on my side. That was when I noticed her, our mother, standing by the entrance, arms folded, lips pursed, watching. She didn't look angry. She looked disappointed. In me. As if I had betrayed them. I already told CPS. Eric continued. You manipulated the whole thing. Lied about the frostbite. You're just jealous I have a family. Eric, I said, cutting him off. You left your children locked outside in the freezing cold. They walked 4 miles in socks. You think a judge is going to care about your jealous fantasies? He stepped back, breathing hard, puffed up like a cartoon villain who'd just been out-monologued. They'll see through you. He spat. All of them. The courts, the lawyers. You don't deserve those kids. At that moment, I didn't say anything. Because behind him, my mom had finally walked over. And for the first time since this entire mess started, she looked directly at her eldest son. Eric, she said, voice low and shaking. Go home. What? He snapped. I said go home. Before you make this worse. He froze, stunned. Not because he respected her, but because she had never, ever taken anyone's side but his. Not once. Not in 30-some years of sibling dynamics, bailouts, birthday guilt trips, or secret family group chats. And now? She was choosing. He stared at her like she just slapped him. You're siding with him? He called CPS. He ripped our family apart. No, she said, her voice cracking. You did. He stormed out without another word. My mom stood there, trembling, tears in her eyes. I didn't know, she whispered. You did, I said gently. You just didn't want to believe it. She nodded. One slow, shattering nod. That night, she came to the apartment. brought a tray of chicken lasagna and a Target bag full of art supplies for Sophia. She stayed for 2 hours. Didn't ask for anything. Didn't try to fix it. Just sat on the couch while Ollie curled up in her lap like it hadn't been years since she held him. And when she left, she kissed Nathan on the forehead and said, "You're safe now. Your uncle's got you." Nathan didn't say anything. But he didn't flinch either. 3 months after the night they knocked on my door barefoot and broken, the judge signed the papers. I was granted full legal custody. Permanent. No time limit. No more check-ins. No more court hearings. No more waiting for Eric and Mara to pretend to care. It was done. I stood in the hallway outside the courthouse with 3 kids clinging to me, Sophia with her sketch pad, Ollie in my arms, Nathan doing that tough guy thing where he wipes his nose and pretends it's not a tear. We went for ice cream afterward. The good kind. Real scoops, waffle cones, gummy bear toppings. Ollie got chocolate all over his sleeves. Sophia spilled half her cone on the sidewalk and didn't even cry. Nathan actually smiled. Not a polite smile. A real one. The apartment was too small now. We needed a bigger place. I found a rental house across town with a yard, a tree swing, and enough bedrooms that everyone got their own space. Sophia chose the one with pink walls and a window that faced sunrise. Ollie wanted the smallest room because he said it felt like a space capsule. Nathan took the one farthest from everyone else, but I noticed he still left his door open at night. I set up chore charts. I learned how to cook actual meals. I messed up spaghetti 3 times before Sophia quietly took over garlic bread duties. Ollie and I read books about planets every night before bed. Nathan started staying after school for science club. He made friends. He started writing in a journal. Once, he left it open by accident. I didn't read it except one sentence at the top of the page. "I don't feel scared all the time anymore." Eric and Mara stopped trying after the second hearing. Their parental rights weren't terminated yet, but the court suspended all visitation indefinitely. Not because of me. Because they never showed up. Not once. No calls. No letters. No effort. Sometimes I'd still get texts from old family friends. "Are you sure this was necessary? Maybe it wasn't as bad as it seemed." I stopped answering. Because if you didn't see the damage, it was because you chose not to look. We were building something new. Not perfect. But real. And safe. And ours. Last week, Nathan turned 14. We didn't throw a big party, he didn't want one. Just pizza, 2 friends from school, and a movie night with beanbags in the living room. At one point, I walked in with popcorn and found all 3 kids piled on the couch, arguing over who got the last slice. It felt normal. Not survival. Not crisis. Just siblings being kids. And for the first time, I realized I wasn't waiting for the other shoe to drop. This was the new normal. Ollie's school sent home a drawing he made in crayon. It was our house with 4 stick figures on the porch. He labeled them. "Me, Sophia, Nathan, Dad." He meant me. I stared at it so long the paper started to bend from my grip. Sophia recently asked if she could join the after-school drama club. When I said yes, she looked stunned. Then she hugged me so hard she knocked over her juice. I cleaned it up and told her it was the best mess I'd ever had. And Nathan? He's taller than me now. Quiet but steady. He still flinches when someone slams the door too hard, still checks on the younger 2 before bed like it's his job. But he laughs more. He teases me now. Told me my chili tastes like sadness. He meant it as a compliment. Eric hasn't contacted us in nearly a year. Mara filed for divorce 6 months ago. I heard through the grapevine that she's living in another state, something about a fresh start. Good for her. I hope it's true. But they're not our problem anymore. And they never will be again. The other day, Sophia asked, "Are we staying here forever?" I knelt down, looked her in the eyes and said, "As long as you want to. I'm not going anywhere." She didn't say anything, just wrapped her arms around my neck and held on. I stayed like that until her breathing slowed and I felt her smile against my shoulder. No words. Just safety. Here's what I know now: love isn't loud. It's not grand gestures or courtroom speeches. Love is snacks in the pantry and homework on the fridge. It's knowing their favorite nightlight bulb color. It's holding space when they cry and not rushing them to stop. It's saying, "I've got you," 100 times until they finally believe it. It's buying 3 backpacks and showing up. Every damn day. I didn't plan this life. I didn't choose to become a father in a single phone call. But I did choose to stay. And that, I think, is what makes all the difference. They came to me barefoot at 2 a.m. once. Now, they come home. Every night. To a house where the door is always open. And locked. Safely. From the inside.